All right, I am now recording.
Now recording.
Now recording.
I am recording.
Beautiful. Okay, now I'm gonna go get a drink.
Oh, you son! I was just.
Ooh.
Relax, everyone, and welcome to Lo-Fi Review. Today, we're going to be talking about our impressions so far for Horizon Forbidden West. Not that fancy new Elden Ring. No. We have a different love here at NFTP, and that's good old robot killing, hunting fun. So I've been playing it a lot. Robert's been playing it a little bit. So we're going to talk about our feelings on that. Robert, did you play the first one?
I did indeed.
Did you beat it?
I did. I played the crap out of that one.
So did I. I liked it a lot. Sean, I don't think you played any of the first one, right?
I have. I've played the first
Oh,
handful
okay.
of hours of the first one because I started
Very
playing
cool.
it recently.
All right, so everyone's got a little touchdown because I know Jason's also played a little bit of the first one, so that like everyone has a somewhat vague idea of how this game plays. So that's kind of cool. Quick recap of the first one and what the second one's going to basically improve on. Open world game, standard open world, maybe too standard because it's really big like they all are these days, and there's a million things to do, and there's a little million icons. They've got Witcher syndrome in full blown force here, and there's a million checkboxes and 7,000 different kinds of quests. But the main idea is basically you're just traveling along in this wilderness, this post-apocalypse, after humanity screwed itself over for the last time, and there are all these machine monsters that resemble either dinosaurs or other mystical beasts, and sometimes just regular animals. Like, you know, you've got ones
A
that
weasel.
look like exactly like weasels or crocodiles. Those are always cool. And and so you would hunt those down. You take their parts and you use them to craft stuff and wear it as armor. And then all the while uncovering the truth of what happened to the world before and why is it this way now. And that story is really interesting. And so you pick up where you left off. Pretty much like 6 months later, you've defeated one small portion of the quote unquote bad guy. It's not as cut and dry as that, but you're finding out that there's even more problems. The world is dying. There's something called a blight that's just spreading everywhere and snuffing out all organic life, basically plants and animals alike. And it affects people too, but for the most part, you know, they're able to keep it away from their civilizations. But at this rate, you know, it's spreading at such a rate that people are just they're gonna die from this instead of any kind of machine apocalypse.
So before we dive into the rest of this, I just want to know, speak to me about the technical fidelity of it on the PS5 version.
Yes, because I'm on PS4, so let's hear.
Oh, excellent. We've got multiple opinions. So yeah, you've got performance mode, which is what I've been playing in this entire time, and then you've got your resolution mode. At this point, I think we all know what that is. Performance is 60 frames per second to 1080p in this particular case. And then I don't remember the specifics of resolution mode, but it makes it look better. And aside from some of the more scenic wide shots where you see a bunch of like vegetation flowing in the wind, and it can look a little glitchy or shimmery or something, I honestly see no reason to ever choose the resolution mode. It's just not good enough. Whereas in games like the Final Fantasy VII upgrade and then Ratchet and Clank, they had similar modes where you could sacrifice some of the frame rates for better looking stuff, and it did look much better. In this one, it just doesn't.
A game like this where traversal and movement is so key that, you know, FPS is, you know, really you're going to live or die by.
Yeah,
So,
it's amazing.
I
love
definitely
it.
see that.
Yeah, I love it. The performance mode is so good, and load times are literally non-existent. And this might be the last time I talk about that because going forward, it's just going to be an expectation. But it's only the third game I've played that was built, at least in some part, for next gen and on my PS5, and so I'm gonna talk about it for just a little bit longer. And that's that they're non-existent. The classic, we literally had to slow it down so you could read the tooltips when you would move between areas and fast travel and stuff.
Playing this on the PS4, what are you looking at for load times? I assume because even the first game had very long load times.
Yes, so the load time is the longest for only when you're starting it from scratch, like from off. The PS4 is off. It takes probably about maybe 4 minutes, 5 at max, which I could be completely off. It just feels like 5 minutes.
I was about to
It's
say.
probably only like 3 minutes. But
my most modded and heavy duty
yeah.
Skyrim on the Xbox One took, I think, 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes to load in. So not too far off.
Yeah, so it's about the same as that, Sean. in game, whenever you're fast traveling or it's loading a new something, like whatever driver they have and program they're using, it does a pretty good job of, and I don't know the background of it, but it does a good job of not having to load something completely every time. I will say, and I don't know how much you'll get into, Karch, but it feels like this game is a next-gen game, even on my PS4. Just the improved facial expressions, the world itself, and how everything feels and looks. It does feel like they just took the original game and then upgraded it to the next thing for the console. So
yeah. 5 years between the last release, basically almost to the month. If I'm not mistaken, the other one came out 2017 in February as well. And so, like and like you said, it's an upgrade all across the board. They didn't get lazy with it. It's familiar for sure. It's a sequel, but the 5 years they spent a lot of time making it look really nice and making it bigger and making the combat more involved. Not necessarily like you're still doing the same things, but like in a lot of games, and in this game too, to a degree, like you lose all your weapons and your armor. You could have had the best weapons and the best armor in the previous game, and there's like a quick throwaway line at the beginning. I can't remember what she says, but she doesn't have her. She's got is her bow. But what they didn't do is they didn't take away her abilities. So there's a lot of stuff that you unlock with skills in the first game that you just have as default in this game. Yep. Or in the previous game that you have in this game. And I'm trying to think of some examples. I had some before and I didn't write them down.
The mount.
Yes, exactly. You can mount certain machines by overriding
from the get-go,
them.
right?
You hack them, and then the mount comes to you all the time now. Just very similar to Roach and The Witcher, and pretty much every mount that is in a game these days. Ghost of Tsushima did the same thing. So you always have a mount if you want it to, traverse these places. Fast travel has always been, around these bonfires, campfires that you'll find throughout the world. In previous game, you had to use a resource to fast travel at all. In this one, as long as you're already at a discovered campfire and you have another discovered one out there, you can travel for free. Nice. If for some reason you're on top of a mountain and you just don't feel like trekking what is usually only like a 2-second jaunt anyway, you can then use a consumable to go to any point you want from that. And they're very easy to craft. They're even cheaper to buy. And so fast travel is just a non-issue at this point.
Talk to us about mechanics, because I will say from playing it, the first one on a PS4 Pro, so that was the HDR, Pro version of the game, because I played it several years after release. What I will say that I remember is I loved the combat, especially with kind of the big bosses, and I just thought that was really neat. I did not love the combat with the human encampments, and I didn't love traversing and trying to climb on things that often I found you weren't able to do. So talk to me about what's changed in this game.
Well, I mean, if you didn't like the human combat before, which I did, I always enjoyed it. I like because human combat was almost always a sneaking mission. Get in there. I mean, you could go in guns a-blazing and bows a-firing, and it was still fairly easy. It was just a little bit more hectic, and in the later parts, they would have better weapons themselves, and you could die a little quicker. But bandit camps and other human strongholds were always like, get in quietly and take them down one by one. And I just enjoyed that because it's very different from fighting the machines in this big bombastic kind of fair. And so for the most part, it's still the same. You have some new melee combos that you can utilize if you have like a group of enemies that makes it a little bit more satisfying as far as the human stuff goes. But that part's mostly the same. Traversal is, in my opinion, really, really good. You can't climb everything, but they kind of undersold how much you could climb, in my opinion, with other previews and like just showing the game off in general. Like I said, you can't literally climb whatever you want, but almost anything that looks climbable can be climbed with relative ease. I find that the pathing of that climbing can be a little glitchy at times. I'm like, just go up, and like I can even see the little foothold, and she's just like, I don't want to do that right now. And I'm just like, oh, okay. And then best of all, of course, is a Breath of the Wild style glider. So when you're on top of a mountain, you just want to drop on down to the ground. You don't have to go back the way you came or find the very conveniently placed like rappel location where you just throw a rope all the way to the floor that they pre-designed. You can just jump off and glide on down, and it's great.
That sounds wonderful.
And don't forget the grappling hook.
Oh yes, the grappling hook. So it's not like a super like very specific points you can grapple, and they're not like, I mean, they are common, but they're also not that common like the climbing places. But it allows you to launch yourself into the air, and then like will then allow you to glide even further. Like it's it really adds to encounters, whether it's machine or human. In fact, I did, there's these hunting lodges, which are these like little time trial things where you have to do a very specific, move or set of moves or set of kills in a very specific way. And one of them was the newly introduced like stealth kill from above. And if you're gliding above someone, you're close enough, you can do a stealth kill where you just drop and thrust your spear into them, and it's really fun.
Can you talk to a little bit more about the open world? Because the first one released, pretty much within months of Breath of the Wild, which really kind of redefined our expectation of the open world. And obviously, you don't have that totally free climbing. You've already mentioned it's a little witchery. I mean, is this, would you say, still kind of a legacy, last generation style of doing an open world game?
Yeah, 100%, but in a very good way. I can't speak to it too much, only because like I don't play these kinds of games very often, and Horizon just kind of speaks to me. Like there's something about it beyond its fun gameplay that just kind of clicks with me. It all comes together in something that's just an experience that Karch enjoys a lot more than, say, like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which I played about 6 or 7 hours of, and nothing about it gripped me. Yeah. It was around like maybe a year or two later, very similar kind of game, and yet at the same time, I'm like, I don't like anything about this. And so in that respect, like, yeah, it's awesome, but it is a very old school open world design. It's very, very polished, but it is like its mind and thought process are very rooted in those kind of old school design.
Yeah, because I think it's going to be interesting for Forbidden West, because Zero Dawn got kind of overshadowed a bit by Breath of the Wild, and I'm beginning to see similar talk of Elden Ring's open world to being very much in line with or an improvement and the kind of the next step in what Breath of the Wild brought us. And so I am somewhat concerned for Forbidden West that it's going to get somewhat drowned out by Elden Ring, much like Zero Dawn did.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate that the same exact scenario happened again.
Yeah.
Someone pointed out a similar thing, to which someone else responded, it's like, don't worry about Horizon, guys. It sold 20 million units in 5 years. It's going to be just fine. Yeah. At which point I was like, yeah, that's true. That's true. So I really love the story of the first game. I really, really liked it, because I got two people here who may play it. And I really do recommend that, maybe one day you boot up the original on your fancy PCs, since it's on PC now, and you just crit path it. Put it on an easier one if you have to. I mean, I don't think Sean has to, but I know Jason might. And just crit path it, because the standard story is really good, and the side content in both of these games is really good too, but it has nothing to do with the main story, in that the main story is like, what happened and how do we take that knowledge and fix our current lives?
Plight.
How do we undo the apocalypse, basically? And everything in the side stuff is, what's it like living in the apocalypse? Because you're helping villagers and tribes people, and just that kind of stuff. And they're really good. They're not bad, but there's this clash, because again, it doesn't ever tie in, not never, but often does not tie in. All these friends you make, all these relationships that you like forge with other people and allies and stuff, like, they're cool, but like, Aloy is the only one who has any idea of what's going on, and she doesn't share stuff, and that's a kind of a character flaw of hers, is that she doesn't trust people, or not trust, but she doesn't open up, because she lived most of her life in exile because people thought she was a bad omen, and she was shunned, basically, and so she has some emotional issues and hang-ups about that. But the story continues in that it's the same exact thing, where the main story is that one thing and the side story is another thing, but it's still, oh man, it's got me so gripped. I'm like, it just keeps throwing stuff at me that I wasn't expecting, like the first one. All these bombs, and I'm only probably 10 hours into the main story. I've played more than that, but I'm probably only about 10 hours into the main story, and I cannot wait to see where this goes and how it ends. Is there a third one? That kind of stuff. How are you enjoying the story so far, Robert?
I really like it. I think they figured out the best combination of elements to keep you gripped with it. And I do also, I've gotten far enough to see the deviation that they've made between main plot and second runner-ups. And yeah, all of it is something that I'm like, okay, yeah. I like where this is going. Yeah. I will say that, and this is probably just a me problem, but they also have set this up in a what feels like a MMO type of hub way, where you'll get to areas and there's like a dozen new side quests, and all of them I love it. It's tons of flavor, world flavor essentially. But I will get stuck. I will stick myself like getting trapped with these, and then by the time I get back to the main plot, I'm like, well, who is this again?
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is classic. That's a classic open world. Like Sean was just asking a bit ago, like how like the open world design, as well as like the quest and game design thing. Like it's that same problem all over again.
Are there any aspects of the game that you haven't been loving aside from what you just mentioned?
The biggest one is the dialogue, and not the specific content of the dialogue. The lines are actually really good. And the performances are really good. Like especially the side characters. Aloy has. I can't connect with her like I'd like to. Unfortunately, I can't really go much into that because it's just like in that regard, it's kind of a gut feeling. There's just a lot of little things I think, but the dialogue is really good. But there's just a lot of it. Like a lot of it. The stuff you can't skip through is pretty long. Then when it comes time to do the dialogue wheel and ask your questions to flesh it out, like I want to know more, but you didn't have to give me this many options, but I don't know which one's going to be the good one and the bad one. Like how am I supposed to know which 2-word question is going to be like, okay, you just rehashed it again versus, oh, you just gave me this huge knowledge dump I would have missed, which would have been really interesting. And so I'm finding myself at the very least in the main story quest going through all of those, which is what I would normally do. But man, they talk a lot in this game. And sometimes it's for the worse. So that was probably my biggest single complaint. Aloy's hair is literally has a mind of its own. She'd just be sitting in a cutscene talking to someone or even just looking at someone talk to her, and her hair is literally just flying all over the place. And I don't understand how they didn't like they knew it. Like I really do try to give developers the benefit of the doubt, but I'm like, what were you thinking when you let this through? Like, just make her hair more still. I don't.
They were probably thinking of Medusa. I'm gonna be honest.
Must have. Like the designer or the developer in charge of the hair was like, what? This isn't a Greek tragedy? I don't understand. Oh, sorry. The dialogue's bad, but you can skip dialogue for the most part. The worst thing is looting. Looting enemies, looting shrubberies, looting. It's so stupid. It takes so long, and you have to do everything individually. And monsters, if you're playing right, you're knocking pieces of them off of them. So you have to loot the monster when it dies, the robot monsters, but then you'll have to go pick up all of their disparate parts. But then there's almost never just one. There's almost like always like 2 or 5. And then so you killed 5 of them. I'm gonna run around, scan them. Okay, gotta pick this up. You're literally wasting minutes of time picking them up. And that goes for every bush, twig, berry, etc. that you need to craft other stuff.
Corpse.
And exactly, corpses. Right. It just sucks. It's so bad. I don't understand how they don't have like a group loot feature. SWTOR has a group loot feature. All MMOs have a group loot feature.
Now I call that feature the Robert trap, because whenever I destroy something, I'm like, I need that right now, and then I will go blazingly to go get it, and then I'll die. So should the game developers have known that? Who am I to say?
That's the same problem I have, especially if it's like something I was trying to get. Like a lot of the time, like for instance, there's the new enemy type. It's like a boar, basically. It's just a giant, razorback.
The
boar
bristleback.
type enemy. Bristleback, that's what they call them. And they got giant tusks, and the tusks are highly sought after for upgrades. And they're very easy to shoot off. And they have that classic orangey legendary color that has become super popular in just about every game these days. And so it drops, and you, like Robert said, I gotta go get that now, even though it's still running and charging, and spitting and flaming you up. And it's yeah. So that is their fault. I'm going to blame them as well.
Yeah.
They gave me a shiny thing and they expected me not to just pick it up. They got that separate VR game coming out though, so that'll be cool.
You'll have to get the PSVR 2, seeing as you're the only one of us who can run it because we don't have PS5s.
As long as it's an NFTP purchase.
Yeah, just put that on Sean's
Company
credit card.
It's gotta be $40 from the dollar I still put to the Patreon.
There you go. But the best thing I can say about the game is that I want to play it right now. Like I want to be playing it right now. I've still got that hook, and it'll have been a week tomorrow that it came out, I believe. Yeah, that's right. And I still want to play it. Played it like a whole bunch that weekend because my daughter was away at at the grandmother's, and so I finally had that perfect time of lining up to be able to play it all I wanted that weekend, and it still wasn't enough to satiate that initial drive to do that. So I'm having a great time with it.
Probably the best compliment you could give a game.
I think so.
All right, everyone. We're signing off, and I did have this real planned until I forgot the exact words I was going to use. So everybody, have a real lo-fi night, and goodbye.
Rise in Forbidden West.
Why can't I edit your doc? No.
You don't need to edit my doc.
I
Get
do.
out of my doc.
I want to put
the
a
doc is not for you.
I want to
It's
put a
my doc.
comma.
Horizon single dawn.
Watch, Jason. Watch while I do this, and you can't do anything about it.
Oh God, no. Not
Hanging bullet points.
Not a trailing bullet.
He hates them. They're my bread and butter, though. They're my come back and put another thought in here later.